This is the web series for the love of BIM, promoting Barbados, everything Bajan Canadian, and everything Canadian Bajan. Welcome to episode 7 in season 3 of the web series For the Love of BIM. I am your host, Sonia Marvel Carter. I'm trying another recording outside while the temperature is still good. Today continues the exciting series where we focus on education opportunities in Canada and chat with Dr. Myrna Lashley in Montreal. Dr. Lashley is a cultural psychologist and lectures at McGill University. She is also Barbados' honorary consul in Montreal. But we will hear more about that in another episode. Before we hear from Dr. Lashley, we again are reminding all of you students here in Canada or coming to Canada to register with the Barbados Consulate using the new registration form. The link for the form is in the description of this video, or you can use the QR code seen here. Another one of the top reasons to study in Canada, according to EduCanada, is we'll set you on the path to a promising future. We'd like to study too. In fact, we've researched graduate outcomes for our students, both domestic and international, for years. And you know what we've learned? Canadian college and university students graduate with a strong earning potential. That's because we position them and you for a successful future and rewarding careers. In the last decade alone, Canada created 1.6 million new jobs for graduates. Something to think about. Now, on to our feature for today. Hi, Myrna. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on For the Love of BIM.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'll jump right into it. Just introduce yourself, let the viewers know who you are and what you do.
Well, I am Dr. Myrna Lashley, born and bred and raised in Barbados. I am a psychologist in the Department of Psychiatry of McGill University. I'm actually a cultural psychologist. So I look at, and I'm also a researcher in radicalization leading to violence. So I look at the intersection in my research of culture and radicalization. Essentially, what leads people to do those things, what maintains it, what are the factors that we have to take into consideration when we are treating this population in order to help them to extricate themselves from the jaws of violence and terrorism. That's essentially what I do. Yes, I do a tremendous amount of teaching. I teach nationally and internationally. So, you know, before COVID, on any given day, you could find me on a plane going somewhere. On any given day or night now, you'll find me in front of a computer screen, giving talks for governments, for companies, for individuals. And I teach mostly, right now I teach only professionals. So I teach graduate students, I teach physicians, other medical personnel, physical and mental health doctors, and nurses and social workers. I teach them about systemic racism. I teach them about culture. So when someone, for example, comes from Barbados, and you have someone in your class from Barbados, you don't understand how they process things and why they say the things they do. I teach them to deal with it. And I'll give you a concrete example. On one occasion, I was in a classroom as a student, and the prof said to me, "Would you like to do something?" And I said, "Thank you for asking, but no, I wouldn't like to." And he got very angry with me and said, "You know, people from Barbados were supposed to be so polite, and I asked you to do something. I told you to do something, and you said no. I mean, that's not what I would expect from somebody from Barbados." And I said, "When did you ask me to do something? When did you tell me to do something?" And he said, "I just said to you, would you like to do this?" Now, in Barbados, when we say, "Would you like to do something?" it's a question. And you can say yes or no, and nobody's upset. It's no, I wouldn't like to, yes. But here, I had to understand that "would you like to do it" meant do that. And so that's those kinds of nuances that I think people coming from the Caribbean, and I'm speaking specifically about Barbados, since I'm the Barbados representative in Montreal, but these are things that nobody tells you. And they can't tell you because they don't know. But these are things, and this way of using the language differently and what it means. I mean, we all understand about looking people in the face, in their eyes. There's still a practice in parts of the Caribbean, and to some extent still in Barbados, where if you look someone in the eye, especially the elderly, they'll think that you're being rude. And so if you come here and you don't look people in the eye when you answer them, they tend to think that you are being rude or being shifty, that you've got something about which to be guilty. So these are things, and and things like yes, please. Well, no one knows what you're saying if you say yes, please. And that's something we have to teach our students or when they come in, that yes, please sounds subservient. And so they don't know what you say. You're trying to be very polite, but for them, for people here, it makes no sense to them. So there are nuances like that. And I think that we have to do a better job when we're preparing people to leave Barbados and to understand that the conditions which obtain in Barbados, and the way in which we train our children, it's not a bad thing, but that they don't always obtain outside of the country.
Well, Myrna, tell us now, what are your views on people coming up to Montreal, or people moving to Montreal from Barbados? Like the French, is the French a main barrier? Tell us
yes.
what that is.
Well, French is very, very important. If you don't speak French, the last time I was talking to some students in Barbados who were contemplating coming to Montreal, I said to them, look, invest in your French. Don't just see this as, it's nice. I said, no, you need to really solidify that. You need to invest in your French. Do it on your own. You have it in school, but also read French books, listen to French music, but solidify your French. It's very, very important. I think that's one of the reasons we don't get a lot of Barbadians coming to Montreal, because they're afraid of the French if they don't have the language skills. It's important to investigate things about Montreal or Quebec before you decide you want to settle here. Having done that, if you still decided, it's an exciting city, it's a wonderful city, it's probably Canada's most cosmopolitan, in spite of anything Toronto says. It's probably Canada's most cosmopolitan city. I mean, you have all the languages. It's a very European type city. You're going to find great aspects of Europe there. When I go to Europe, I always feel like I haven't left Montreal. It's the same thing. But yes, you need to know, all those things.
How long have you lived in Quebec?
Oh, my stars. I've lived in Quebec on and off since the 60s, 70s. I mean, I've lived in Germany, England, I've traveled around the world. Outside of Barbados, I consider Montreal my home. Whenever I fly out of Montreal and I'm coming back and I see the lights as the plane is landing, I'm always very happy. And whenever I go to Barbados, I have the same feeling, almost the same feeling when I come back to Montreal as I do when I go to Barbados. Barbados for me is home and always will be, and that holds a special place in my heart. It's very, very important to me. It's a place that it's my grounding spot. I need to go to Barbados every few years. I remember at one point I hadn't been home for several years for a multitude of reasons, because I used to be in the Canadian Armed Forces and being caught things that I had to do, and I couldn't get home. But I found that I was going into a bit of a depression. And I remember saying to my commanding officer, I need to get to Barbados. And he didn't fully understand. I said, you need to trust me on this. I need to get to Barbados. And the minute I got off the plane and I touched the tarmac, it was as though my soul was at peace. And I felt okay, I can turn around now and get back on that plane and go back to Canada, and I'm okay. But I needed to touch the place of my birth. I needed to touch where my navel string was buried. But it also brought home to me the importance of working within the field of culture, that field was not clearly understood. And it still isn't. And it's what I do. I teach about systemic racism. I teach about colonialism. I teach about the intergenerational trauma and what that has done to people, and the fear that engenders in people, and the need to be among your own from time to time, where you feel protected and where you don't have to engage in appeasement. That to me is very important. But I clearly remember that feeling. I said, when I came back, I said to my commanding officer, never again will I be in a situation where I don't go home for 10 years. That's never happening again. So I would encourage people to maybe visit Montreal before they move to it. Come and see what the country is all about. But it's a good place to go to school. McGill is a wonderful place to go to school. Concordia is a great place to go to school. We have great universities here. But the thing is that we have such good education in Barbados that the most of the international students come here. When Barbadians come here, they come as graduate students. They're not coming as undergraduates, and that's important to underscore. But once you've done that, it's a good place to look for work. But learn to speak other languages, because if you can speak another language, you then step into the world of international trade. If you are coming here in the winter, for goodness sake, get a good coat. You need a good coat. And if just because you've gone to New York in the winter, or you've gone to Toronto in the winter, that is not a Quebec winter. A New York winter is not a Canadian winter. And it's certainly not a Montreal winter. There is nothing like a Montreal winter unless you're in the Arctic. Sometimes Montreal is colder than the Arctic. I've been to the Arctic. And so if you're coming here, for goodness sake, invest in boots, gloves, not even gloves, mittens, lined mittens, good boots, and a good coat and a good hat. And maybe this is something we should be doing in Barbados before people leave. Maybe we should be telling them what the winter is really like.
Thank you, Dr. Lashley. And as a sociolinguist myself, I can't underscore enough how important it is to learn another language, and not just the language, but the culture that goes along with that language. So those of you studying French, take a look at the education opportunities in Montreal. Now to the birthday and anniversary shoutouts.
This is your day. This is your day. This is your day. This is your day. Happy birthday to you. May all your wishes come true, my darling. Happy birthday to you. Long life's the dreams and no jobs and blessings. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. You have a nice day. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Congratulations to all celebrants. Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks. So continue to play your part to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus. See you next week.
watching For the Love of BIM.